A24 has had some hits in the horror genre, and now it's time to revel in their first comedy? So Y2K is directed by Kyle Mooney. It's New Year's Eve 1999, and a couple of high school kids get together and party for the night till Y2K hits. And instead of the bug turning the computers back to the year for 2000, all electronic devices turn on us, and it's the start of the most robot apocalypse movie if I've ever seen in one. When I first heard about this film, I thought, okay, that's an interesting premise. And also the fact that it's A24 at the helm of this thing, I said, there's no doubt they'll be able to pull this off. And also being their first sort of comedy after they've been giving us some interesting type of films. I said they'll be able to pull this off, and well, let me start off by saying that with a premise like this, it should be easy to poke fun at some of the technology of the era, and also play with the fact that technology has come so far, especially in 2024. But it's weird that for a movie called Y2K, this movie doesn't get too far into the actual Y2K part of its story. There are some notable faces here like Rachel Zegler, Jaden Martell from It, but if I'm going to be honest with you, and it's been a minute since I've seen him in a while. The standout here was Julian Dennison, aka Firefist from Deadpool. He was hilarious, and also that best friend type that was one of those guys you're like, you know what, you're the homie, and I'm not gonna lie, I do know a couple guys like him. He was a standout, and hopefully he gets to do some more comedy because I did kind of like what he was doing in this thing. The bummer about this is that once the setup is out of the way, part of the fun of how the electronics would be taken over, it doesn't get really emphasized that much. Like it happens, but then there's some weird moments where you see a Tamagotchi stitched up on a little car. You see somebody walk by and you see a blender basically trying to cut up their dick. Like once the appliances turn on us and you see those little brief glimpses of what they're doing to us, it's funny for that little piece, but then after that, you don't see it throughout the rest of the film. Even with some little group choices where I feel like, okay, we had an established group, like we got the popular girl, the best friend duo, the geeks, the goths, the nerds, a couple of stereotypical archetypes that would fit well in a group like this, but then the movie does little things where it's like, okay, we'll just kill them off, but for comedy? Like you'll see some characters have their little moments and actually stand out in the movie, but then after that, their scene just ends like, what was the point of that? If they stuck around, it would be kind of funny to see what they would do in these situations since it's basically us against technology, especially during the 2000s. But the movie doesn't go far with its premise until the very end of this film. Like you have the setup that is basically the rise of the machines. You get a little bit of filler in between some light comedy, which doesn't always work out. And then in the third act, the movie picks itself up and it's like, oh, so yeah, we're still being invaded by these things. I don't know if it's just me, but this is going to be a little bit of an off topic thing. But part of this film kind of reminded me of Scott's Guide to the Zombie Apocalypse, if you remember it. Another film with a cool premise, but then the execution didn't quite work out the way it was supposed to. Like in that film, you have some zombies take over a small town, and these scout misfits who don't even know that there's an actual zombie apocalypse goes on. They're the ones who are like, you know what? Let us stand up, use our skills that we learned as scouts, and actually try to take over and actually try to stop the zombies. But then nothing happens until the very third act of the film, where it's like, okay, this is all the stuff we saw in the trailers, but then what else? Okay. And that's kind of like the same in here because the actual Y2K and reason for what's going on doesn't even get explained until the third act. And it would have been cool to see that certain element being brought up from the beginning, and you would see, oh, so there's some really a real threat out there, I guess. But even though it's ridiculous as it seems, it feels like, oh, so there is a standing presence throughout this whole film. This to me almost feels like Gen Z's version of This Is the End, but then again, there wasn't enough time and talent to actually try and do their own thing and expand on the dangers of technology of that era. The way I see it, Y2K, I was disappointed in it. I had some real excitement going into it, but with a little bit of potential of what they could have done with the script, I feel like instead of just trying to do a straight out comedy, they could have done at least a survival thriller film. And I know it's ridiculous the fact that, yeah, technology isn't as advanced as it was in 1999, but then again, it's like, yeah, this could have been another Maximum Overdrive, something like that. At least I can say the film was short. It was around at least like 90 minutes long, so it's like it gets you in and out. You forget about it as soon as you leave the theater, but then it's like, yeah, that movie would have been cool if they actually stuck with its premise. All right, you guys, thank you guys for watching. Leave a like, subscribe if you haven't already. Have you seen Y2K? If you did, let me know in the comments down below, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye, guys.